Welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is synthesis, bringing together and resolving the apparent conflict between opposites. So it should be an interesting conversation. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the pressure, the temperature, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. It's great to have you here with us this morning, and good morning to everyone else who's joining us. Today, we're talking about synthesis. And so I looked into the definition of synthesis, and it is resolving the difference between thesis and antithesis. So what does that mean? Like an idea and its opposite. To come up with a new idea. And we've spoken about this many times in context of the framework, the triad framework, where you have an activating force, a restraining force, and then a reconciling force. And that's really what synthesis is. But synthesis is, we don't necessarily think of it that way, but it is the same, where we're generating something new from the seeming conflict or opposition of two ideas or vantage points or perspectives. So what does it look like? What does it look like to bring something new forward? How do we do that? One of the things that we talk about a lot is being present. And what being present means is finding our path to move beyond the constraints that are imposed by our past, by our history, by the limits of our beliefs and our ideas and our patterns. And there's a tremendous power in the patterns that we exhibit. So Rosalind says a belief that the earth was not flat. A belief that so that was a pretty radical belief, right? A pretty radical thing to entertain. There was the idea that the earth was flat, and then there was opposing information that challenged that. And then the synthesis of all of that information generated the notion that maybe the earth is not flat. And maybe same thing with the earth revolving around the sun versus the sun revolving around the earth. Same idea. So to synthesize this information, to intake information that may seem contradictory, and to come to a resolution, not just between black and white, like the earth is round or the earth is flat or the earth is orbiting the sun or the sun is orbiting the earth, because that's kind of a yes or no, black or white polarity, but to generate something entirely new. I guess, yeah, I mean, in the context of the existing reality, to generate a reality that opposes that, that is new for sure. And I'm thinking about the particularly about the political fracturing that we're experiencing in our country, the divisiveness, the extreme positions, the opposite camp kind of feeling, where people don't bother to give each other the courtesy and of listening, of communicating, truly communicating, rather than holding a stance, holding a position. And there's something underlying that kind of social pattern, the social pattern of opposition, that I think is really important to look at. What it's based in is a presumption of separation, and a presumption in that separation that and othering, that the other is actually an endangerment. Welcome, Dido. So good to have you joining us this morning. And what a treat. We are talking about synthesis and coming up with new ways of new ideas, new ways of being. And I recognize that the particularly the political environment, and also the environmental environment, climate crisis, the things that we're facing, I recognize that it's exhausting. And the thing is that we really, truly cannot come to a resolution, a real resolution of these issues following down the familiar path that we have traveled, which is one based in separation and the notion of otherness. When we come from that place of separation, we are defining opposition by default, because when there is an other, that other poses some kind of threat. Along with this notion of separation is the notion of scarcity, that they go hand in hand in a kind of inextricable way. Because if we are not connected, if we are separated from each other, then there's this competition where I need to look out for me, you need to look out for you. And if I have more, it might mean that you have less, if we're coming from that place of scarcity. So this idea of separation really does lead to the concept of scarcity. When we are isolated, a natural consequence of separation is fear. And when there's fear, there's defensiveness. And when there's defensiveness, there's offense, right? So the more separated we are, the more separation we breed. And on a certain level, certainly it appears that we're separate, that we're individuated. And yet, if we step back, if we zoom out, we can see that there's this whole that incorporates and encompasses all life, all being, all of existence, and that existence is all interconnected. It's like looking at the organs of the body versus looking at the whole body. We can't separate the organs from the body. Without the interaction of the organs, the body is going to function or not function, is not going to function, or it's going to function very differently without all those organs. And so the synthesis that I'm trying to address is finding some kind of reconciliation, some kind of new level being, new level generation from the apparent polarities. You know, I'm thinking about the political system that we have, and I remember for a while it seemed that there was some momentum to the notion of a system where the votes are tiered, kind of, where it's multiple choice, essentially, where there would be this list of candidates. It wasn't either all win or all lose. It was the candidate that gets the most votes. It was something like if maybe you vote for 3 people in consecutive order. So if the first person that you're voting for isn't in the running, then it goes to your second vote, your second choice. And if that person's bounced out of the running, then it goes to your third choice, etc. So rather than just being sort of a black and white two-party win-lose kind of thing, the votes that we have could count. So I'm just thinking, for instance, when Bernie Sanders was in the running against Hillary Clinton, what happens in our current system is that we typically vote against, I don't know about you, but I end up typically voting against one candidate rather than for another. And the reason for that is because we're afraid that if we vote for the person we want to vote for, that we'd be throwing away that vote. So if we were to vote for a third party candidate, that might give our least desirable candidate a better chance of winning. And so in this other idea of a system where there's the tiered approach, you could actually vote for the person you really wanted to win. And you could vote for your second choice, and you could vote for your third choice, for example. And that way we would open the doors to change in maybe making it possible to really vote our conscience and our hearts. And so that is an example of a synthesis. I think it's an example of a synthesis idea, where we pull together all of these differing and seeming contradictory pieces, where we've got this fractionalization of our country on one side or the other, and there's this spectrum in between that seems to get ignored, and we're locked into a dysfunctional system. To be able to generate something new where people actually could vote, like where their vote would really count, where we would be more living in a more democratic kind of system, that would be a remarkable thing. And it's very foreign to what currently exists in this country. But I believe that other countries have implemented that system effectively. The thing is that we don't really have a democracy here because of the electoral college, which is what is ultimately dictating who becomes our president. So the idea with synthesis, the idea with this reconciling force, the idea with generating something new is to be able to step beyond the obvious bias, to step beyond the pre-programmed or predisposed approach to quote unquote problem solving. And we've spoken about this so many times, that the problem with problem solving is that it is dictated by the problem, that the parameters of problem solving are dictated by the problem itself, rather than giving the opportunity to zoom out and to recognize that maybe the problem is a symptom and is not the core dynamic that is dictating whatever the issue is that is being addressed. It's interesting because I have a podcast. Those of you who've been around for a while know that I have a podcast called Sustainability Now with my partner in that, Scott Billy. And one of the foundations of Sustainability Now is, it's meant to cross the different pillars of sustainability. So we listed them as, and this is not an all-inclusive list, but food, energy, housing, waste, water, health, economics. And the last one is consciousness. And consciousness is the most important. And so recently, on one of our movie nights, we have movie nights pretty regularly every Thursday, although we may be switching to every other Thursday. What we discussed was how really truly consciousness is key in being able to address what is occurring in our world, on our planet, in the realm of sustainability, in the realm of politics, in the realm of the climate change, in the realm of being, is consciousness. That until we shift our consciousness, we're not going to find a solution, because all the solutions or all the approaches are dictated by the same old, by the limits of the paradigm in which we exist, in which, and the lens through which we interpret the world. And so along with the shift in consciousness comes the mandate that we really truly must shift our way of thinking, shift our intelligent approach, shift the way that we conceptualize things. And one of the biggest, maybe the most foundational premise that gets to be shifted is the notion of separation versus oneness. That when we recognize that we are inextricably linked, that we are all part of a greater whole, that the individuation that we have is superficial at best, then our ability to interpret things is going to alter. Our ability to see things is going to expand. As we expand our view, as we zoom out, as we get a broader vantage point, as we see from a greater distance, we get to see more. We get to see a bigger picture. We get to see the impact of our choices. And when we are aware of our impact, by default, pretty much, that awareness brings a greater sense of context and responsibility. So while awareness is not necessarily enough, because we don't always have a way to be able to interact from that place of new awareness, there is a momentum that shifts the field, that shifts our interpretations, that shifts our ability even to conceive something else. As the boundaries of the box expand, the boundaries of our capacity to conceive of something also expand. And so even if we're still thinking inside the box, if we're making the box bigger and bigger and bigger, we might be able to come up with more functional kinds of solutions. So synthesis, like, let's make a commitment. Let's make a commitment to be looking at our options and thinking beyond the existing options. So there are possibilities. Things are not binary. We tend to reduce things to a binary so that we can better deal with them, so that we can better interface with them, so that we try to simplify things because complexity can be baffling and overwhelming and overcoming. And we get to find many ways to allow ourselves to step into the discomfort of uncertainty. And in that uncertainty, from that chaos, from that disruption, emerge emerges new potentials, new possibilities. And as we allow ourselves to become uncomfortable and to embrace that unfamiliarity, to become comfortable with unfamiliarity, to be comfortable with that kind of disruptive discomfort, we have a much better shot at synthesis. Because when it's like a koan, when it confuses the brain, like what's the sound of one hand clapping, to really be entertaining something that is seemingly irreconcilable requires that we access other dimensions of our intelligence and of our being and of consciousness. And it moves us into a new realm of discovery. And so that's what synthesis is about. So the invitation for all of us is to find a way to remain present and to allow for the disruption of uncertainty to elevate us to new ways of thinking and being. So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I invite you to check us out each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network YouTube, Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like and follow the Enlightened World Facebook page and YouTube channel, and to follow my YouTube channel. The links are in the chat, in the description. And as always, it's such a privilege and pleasure to have the opportunity to spend this time with you and to share what it is to be human in these times of transformational change. So until next time.